Okay. Calling to order the September 21st, 2023 meeting of the Historic Resources Commission here in 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 205. The next business meeting of the commission will be Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at noon. And the next general commission meeting will be Thursday, October 19th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Both of those meetings are here in room 204, second floor, 111 North Front Street. Jacqueline, if you raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth in your testimony before the commission this evening?
I do, Jacqueline myself.
Thank you. And introduction of the commissioners here present this evening, starting in my left.
Tamika Baba.
Joseph McCabe.
Stuart Gibbon.
Michael Fort.
Thank you. Are there any items for public forum this evening?
No items for public forum.
Okay, having no items for public forum, moving on to approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was August 17th of 2023.
I make a motion to include that in the permanent record.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, clarification in second.
Second.
Tamika, okay, great. Having a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. I'm going to go on record as abstain since I was not at that meeting. Moving on to certificates of appropriateness and staff reports, and starting out with the the approval of staff approvals.
Oh, sorry. Is that a question for me?
It is approval of staff approvals.
Oh, motion to approve?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding the staff approvals? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. On to recommendations and cases this evening. Starting with new applications, Jack.
Okay, yes, we had a couple that were moved to staff approval of the business meetings. So we're starting with application item number 5, and that's for 685 Brighton Road. And this is a request for action, exterior alteration. The proposal here is to replace an asphalt shingles with CertainTeed Landmark Early Dimensional shingles in Noir Black. And that shingle is not from the approved list, which is why the application is on the agenda. And then it would also include installing gray metal ridge roll. So the application was previously on the November 2022 HRC agenda, but it was withdrawn by the applicant at that time. So the applicant has resubmitted. The building at 685 Brighton Road was approved as new construction in 1991. The construction drawings note that the roofing material as a 30-year asphalt shingles with 2 skylights on the west slope of the roof and 1 skylight on the north. Based on review of building permits, it appears that the existing 3-tab shingle that's there now is likely the original shingles that was installed. So the landmark shingles that are proposed are described by the manufacturer CertainTeed as designed to replicate the appearance of cedar-shaped roofing. And there are currently 5 different landmark designs, which are listed out in that staff report here. So in historic districts, the commission's focus on what materials were originally used on buildings, and we try to maintain those original materials or return to the original materials if the building has been modified in the years. So for City Code 316.11, standards for alteration requires that new materials match original as closely as possible. And I know previously, maybe not for this application, but in the previous application, the applicant mentioned that they weren't sure if some of the shingles on the approved list were available. So we did check on November of last year and also recently this month of this year, just to make sure at least a few of them were available. And then the ones that the particular local provider confirmed for those 3 that are also listed in the staff report. So the September 7th business meeting, the commissioners asked for clarification on the reason behind the choice of the asphalt shingle, not from the approved list. The commission noted that even for non-historic buildings, they do want to maintain the compatibility of materials in the historic district and cited that need to avoid setting precedent. And the commission noted that a shingle from the approved list could be staff approved. So in response to the business meeting feedback, the applicant has provided some information, noting that they chose the asphalt shingle based on the advice of a designer in Columbus, and that they would prefer to stick with the asphalt shingle that they're proposing today. And that they believe that the proposed shingle that they would like to move forward with would look best with the brick. And with that, the staff recommendation is to either recommend approval of the application HR 2309 022 at 685 Brighton Road for installation of an asphalt shingle roof from the approved shingles list, or to recommend denial as currently proposed per the city code 316.11 standards for alteration, specifically number 6 and 12. And with that, I'll turn it over to the commission.
Okay, is there actually anybody here, by the way, for 685 Bryan Road?
Yeah, we're here.
If you want to come forward actually real quick,
Okay.
slide on up, we'll have you raise your right hand, swear you in real quick, and I'll wait till you're all here, just in case any of you speak. Do each of you swear to tell the truth in your testimony before the commission this evening?
Yes, please.
Okay, wonderful. Each state clearly your full name and association with the property for record.
My name is Chris Dawley. I'm an attorney at Ice Miller, and I represent Ginger Cassimi, who's the owner of the property.
Great. And you, sir?
I'm Larry B. Hum. I'm the roofing contractor for the building relationship with Ginger.
Great. Okay, thank you. If you want to take a seat here just for a second.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to the request before the commission?
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
What we would like to state is, so first, the existing shingle on the building does not exist. So the existing shingle is not available. So we have to go, the roof clearly needs replaced. It's not an issue. The existing shingle is not available. So we go to a commercial designer and they say, it's fine to have the same style of shingle that you have. So the same style that's on the roof is acceptable, but it needs to be darker with the brick. And as you can see from this one, that color, it fades over time. So you need to have a darker color.
Mhm.
So we then look at the approved list, and the approved lists really are all kind of a gray. And in addition to that, of the 4 that we think might be available, I think Larry could add to this, but I can speak to him. I think 2 of them really are an inferior shingle, and that would be the nickel gray and the estate gray. And then the English gray slate and the weather slate are 3 times more expensive than the one we are proposing. And so what we are asking to do is to put the same style shingle on the roof that currently exists, just in a darker, kind of a lighter black than the grays that are on the approved list. That's really all that we're asking to do here.
And to note, the existing shingle on the roof is the same shingle style that we are proposing. So it's not, as in the records, we're stating a 3-tab. What's currently on there is a dimensional shingle.
Right,
From its original.
which is not on the approved list.
Correct.
And so
Clearly, it's not the right, the area, right.
but it is a replacement in kind, correct?
But I don't think that's what was called out in the original architectural plan. I think they originally called out that it was going to be a 3-tab. Somehow miraculously, it turned out to be a dimension.
And Jacqueline, do you concur that the original was supposed to be a 3-tab based on the original plans for the building?
Yes, that's what we have in our records that was approved. Then what was actually installed versus that might be different.
You're saying in 1991, your records show that a different style shingles was approved, put on versus what was put on.
Yes,
Yes, say.
approved during the permitting process. Do you have your sample, by the way?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you mind if we take a peek at that?
Would you like me to just bring it up to you?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the same?
Here it says the darker hides the dimension. Sure.
And what is your rationale for the darker shade?
Well, they all fade. All of them fade. And that one I know just fades to dark gray, which would look nice with our building. We want something that's gonna look nice with the building. We don't want to hurt our property values.
Mhm.
I know, because we have this on our house. Went from black to dark.
Okay.
And those on your list will fade too, really bad. Only they'll go light. because they have white in them.
I mean, the general basis is that, we don't want anything that looks wood look unless the building was clad with wood, or a number of buildings in the area were clad with wood. So then, when you think about the historic district here, and it's largely a lot of slates, on Brighton Road. So what is the closest to slate? In many ways, even though you have a newer building, it still compatibly has to fit with the architecture of a district. I guess I'm curious to hear what other members of mission think. So,
That started out as dark brown. Very dark brown.
But I think,
And that's
yeah,
what faded to.
yeah. What was on was a dark brown, which is clearly not a good color.
which we're not so sure that what's on there was probably not what was supposed to be on there, is what we're also hearing
Okay.
based on files.
It was Meacham.
Meacham and April.
Meacham and April did it.
Can you remind me again what the life expectancy of this new roof shingle is versus?
Sure, so these are a 30-year shingle. The inferior one on the list is the 3-tab, and that's a 20 to 25-year shingle. And these all carry a lifetime warranty as well, so they, granted that if there's a class action lawsuit, they'll, so that's the better product, is that.
So I kind of give her the room.
You don't. It's unfortunate that the shape of the shingle itself, but not necessarily the material of what's going to last for the years. That's the issue.
What are your thoughts?
So, I guess I'd just like to hear a little bit more. You guys had mentioned you would review a number of these products. And, it was either price or what was the other factor you said?
Inferior, it's the inferior shingle based upon its life expectancy. I think Larry was just referencing that. I think the nickel gray and the estate gray are 20 to 25-year products versus
And this is a third.
30-year product.
The 3-tab is 60-mile-an-hour rated. It's not as heavy, and the dimensional shingle, what is on there is 120-mile rated as well. So that's why it's recommended for those insurance companies as well when they go to put these on.
Understood. And then it also sounded like, it's hard to rehash, but I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You also said that you didn't like the color selections, right? That was another determining factor based on these on the list.
Yes, they're all gray, which
Yours are all the same color.
we want it to be a kind of a lighter black versus the gray.
Understood.
Just-
You want yours to be darker.
Yeah, a little darker, and I think the designer that we hired said it would go better with the building, would look better, in the community, and it'll fade, but it'll fade, and it'll fade more to a gray, then the gray is gonna fade to more of a brownish or a lighter color, so it's better to have that kind of a shingle. That was basically what the designer told us.
I don't personally, this is just me personally, and then we can talk a little bit more about what guidelines say, but I don't personally have a problem with that product. It sounds like it's gonna be a quality product. I know we have these guidelines for specific reasons though, so we follow guidelines, we set precedent, there's uniformity and all of that. So what we've talked about in past projects is expanding this list, potentially doing test cases. Is this an appropriate, this is for the other commissioners, is this an appropriate application potentially of looking at another shingle for test case?
I don't believe it's a test case really, but I do think it's unique enough that one of the things I look at is this is a new construction 1991 building. I agree it's in a district, so, and the evidence of this roof and shingle in style has sort of existed on this building now since that time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's created any impact.
Mm-hmm.
modern buildings have lifespans of things that are more transitionary in nature, and this is only a moment in time, although we call it a 30-year shingle. I have yet to see even a 20-year shingle that lasts a full 20 years, so, you know, somebody's gonna be back here in less than 30 years, probably pitching the next shingle, put them on there.
Right.
I'm okay with it probably being an exception to the rule, only because this is a newer construction building. Clearly what's on there is not appropriate, it's not what I'd like to see, but I don't believe it's making any impact to the district as well. It's not impacting any historic structures. So that's just my thoughts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the important piece is that the appropriate shingle was never placed on the building. So I think if anything were to sway me to kind of go along with this shingle is the right material was never there to begin with.
And I kind of think the same way. I think if we have an opportunity to perhaps put something back the way it should have been, particularly because it's within the face of that district. For me, that's a little more poignant, perhaps even as sort of a condition that, you know, we may face other applicants that say, oh, well, this was an option. Why was this an option? And we say, well, because it was put on wrong in the first place. We just kind of went with it. And I'm a little worried about maybe the backlash of that through other applications down the way. A piece of that we could be concerned about.
It's fair.
So other than a timeline of warranty and thickness and wind rating, they do make heavier 3-tab shingles, as you well know. Have you exhausted all of the options in the sense of trying to meet the criteria that you want as far as length of warranty, wind rating, within the options of even something that looks closer to what's on the approved list?
Sure. And I grew up in the business and I have all the master certifications for all the other products. And this is the brand that, and that's why I've also chosen Certainty. I have zero issues with them every time I put them on. I can go back to a roof that I looked at or installed 10 years ago and it still looks the same color. So it just is it's a better shingle. Like the GAF, there's other on there. They've either bought a company or they didn't honor their class action lawsuit. And so that's why other suppliers in the area continue to use like Certainty. So, and I can offer a 50-year lifetime warranty through my certifications if I want. It's just paying an annuity premium pretty much if Ginger wants to satisfy that, where it's, you know, they pay for the labor and all those types of things. The carriage house, those types of brands that are being recommended, for instance, that's like $120 a square. Just for the material alone for the carriage house, which is the slate line looking style, that's about 360 a square.
Well, and with all due respect, we have to look at the aesthetic value, not necessarily the financial piece. Now, in the event that this didn't pass and there's a economic hardship you're able to appeal if we didn't approve it, and that's something that you can address at that point. But as far as what we're concerned with, we're looking at, you know, the impact of the culture, the community, the historicity of the building, and setting precedent. And so if we're looking at the approved list, personally, I feel more comfortable with something that's along the design line of that, as opposed to a dimensional shingle like this.
I would also like to comment, if to the extent someone is now saying that that shingle was not the approved shingle, it's been on there for 32 years and no one has ever said that to us in 32 years.
Okay.
So I don't, well, maybe,
I don't think Meacham people would do that.
I don't know.
Well,
I
we
don't know where
can't
that's coming
vouch
from, but
for them on that, but
yeah, I don't know where that's coming from, but that was not the approved shingle.
When were you anticipating of starting the project?
As soon as possible.
Okay. Do you have any immediate emergency issues? Is there any major leaking? Is there anything along those lines going on, other than it needs to be replaced?
We don't have any leaking right now.
Okay.
We have
So if we were to perhaps continue this, give you another cycle of a couple week period to review these options, I would feel more comfortable if it was within the keeping of the style of this, whether it's a 3-tab, whether it's a dimensional, and this is like, in my mind, Henry Ford making Model T. I mean, these things are extremely durable. They're great. They make a lot of them. And so the price point's really good. So I'm not negating that. And I'm not negating that it's not a good shingle. I just think it's inappropriate for this building.
I know she doesn't like any of the 3-tab options available, at least in the inferior one. I think we entertained, I think when we originally, that's when we originally proposed this in last November. When we went through the list, I think 4 were available and the others were either discontinued and whatever. So the only one that really came back on the list as of January was, I believe, the Carriage House Stonegate Gray. So I know, like, you know, I kind of know what blindly is. Like Tamco's garbage. GAF's all right, but they're the one that bought Elk, and so they're not. I wouldn't, if I had to choose, I'd choose Certainteed over them. The True Slate is discontinued at the very bottom.
And again, it's not necessarily manufacturer, not to interrupt you again.
Yeah, I guess I'm
It's the
missing your
style,
question.
the style of the shingle. So whether
Yeah.
it's a slate line product, you know, that kind of aesthetic. If you want to do dimensional, then do a dimensional like that, as opposed to this true on sort of shake kind of dimension.
That I think is the probably the number one thing, though. I think that what I'm hearing here is, you know, a 3-tab shingle obviously has a certain look, but this one specifically is to replicate a shake roof. And I think that's the question here is, you know, if you came to us and you said, hey, I found this other 3-tab manufacturer that's not on your list, would you approve it? I think there's still a discussion to be had there. We have approved other manufacturers, not meant to, we don't provide, you know, we can't say you have to use this off your list. You can always bring us alternates to consider. And as long as they're aesthetically appropriate and they look like they, you know, are in line, that is the goal, or the you know, the basis for making a judgment. We don't want you to just think that, you know, the 5 on the list or the 6 on the list, those are ones that have been found to be consistently looking appropriate on many buildings in historic districts. I think what I'm hearing largely is most people are just uncomfortable with the fact that the cedar shake look of the product itself. We're not arguing the quality, the manufacturer, any of the other.
Or the colors.
I mean, it could be dark. I wouldn't have no issue with it.
And it's not, and I guess and I don't know if any of you have a roofing background at all or nods, but this goes on 99% of every house currently in today's standards. So it's not like a cedar shake. It's dimensional architectural style is what they refer to it as, but every roof that you put a new roof on, that's what goes on.
Largely, right, but
Correct.
when you say that, it's generally homes that are not historic districts. So it's, you know, new tract subdivision homes. You know, it's just a different animal than what at least the 3-tab in parts or the look of a slate line shingle looks a little bit more appropriate for what's around it, you know. You know, it's distinctly different if you put a cedar, I mean, and the product manufacturer even says it's meant to look like a cedar shaped roof.
So we have a few options. We can give you a little more time to research it. We could propose it just as you want with this. What would you like to do?
I don't understand what's wrong with that.
I mean, we're generally not, I don't, we can take a vote. I don't think we're generally hearing support that most people are.
And
With the look.
what's not supportive of that shingle is the
Is the-
style,
Yes,
because you're saying it looks like
it looks like a cedar.
a cedar shingle,
Yeah.
and you want a shingle that looks more slate roof shingle.
Well, it doesn't look like a cedar shingle.
Right.
So it can be whatever other opportunity within the dimensional aesthetics of the current list, and we can float around with the, you know,
Does-
manufacturers.
Does Certainty make a more 3-tab looking with this color?
They make a 3-tab. As to it, in the Moray black line, yes, I believe so.
I mean, there may be other options, and again, we're just trying to work with you to the greatest,
Sure.
we can achieve our goal of what we have to look for and review.
So you're saying, Larry, you believe there may be a 3-tab or a black?
Yeah, I would please, I think so, yes, there still is, because we would cap some of those. We can cap it with that, like their hip and ridges, we would cap. And then we put the tin or red or gray, depending on whatever color you chose. But along the hips, we would use a 3-tab to create the hips with the Nori black 3-tab. That's what we are doing. Or they make one called a shadow ridge, which is an accessory in that color of your choice.
But the 3 tabs are not as strong.
3-tabs are not as strong,
So in a windstorm, there's more damage.
possibly.
So, but let me make sure so I understand. So if we said we're going to consider looking at a darker 3-tab, more black shingle, then what is the process for, I mean, do we have to start this whole process?
We can make an adjustment to your application currently, if you wanted to do that.
If you consented to that, we could
Right.
just have you make a follow-up submission to.
You just have to change your documents slightly through your application, but that's just a slight modification. At least at that point, we could conditionally approve it until you provided the documentation. Once they receive the documentation, then you get the certificate of appropriateness and you can keep moving.
So it'll be the color. Be a tag.
This is almost.
More in black, yeah.
And then another option, if you're wanting a little bit more time to look at some more shingles, we can continue it and potentially, if you come with the shingle, you submit it, we have an extended week. If you're continued, it could be moved to staff approval at the business meeting, which is October 5th. So just another option.
So that way you're only out a couple weeks. That way.
Our goal is not to have you come back if possible.
Yeah, that's our goal too. Yeah, that's our goal too.
We'll shut the meter off.
Yeah, and so I understand the first process you mentioned. This process is, what you
So
said.
if the application is continued, let's say you're really not sure about making a choice tonight, you want a little bit more time to look at some more options, the application can be continued, and then you'd be on the next agenda, and you would submit any updated findings that you've had. And then at the business meeting, and as long as we have a quorum, if the commission is okay with an application, they can move it to staff approval of the business meeting. So it's a little bit faster, possibly that way, than wait until the whole next meeting.
So what do we then have to do to get, we have to,
You would submit the options that you found that you would like to move forward with, and if those look okay, and the commission's comfortable, then they can, you would say, yes, we're okay with moving this to staff approval.
and when you say submit the options, meaning do we give you a sample, or, I mean, what do we just give you a name, or what do we?
Yeah,
how do
if
we
you
do
give
that?
product spec information, for 3-tab, that would be fine. If it's something that looks a little more dimensional, that's not clear if it's going to be, that wood cedar shake or not, we might ask for a sample. It just kind of depends how clear the product spec is. We just want to make sure that it's not that wood cedar shake.
Okay, understood.
And here's another thing that we discussed briefly.
Yeah, so I had the idea is if we offered you, if you would want us to, and you consent to change your application tonight, which is we could consider a motion conditionally approving a 3-tab certainteed Moray black to be followed up with a submittal to staff. And then if you just decide you don't like that, you can still come back and change. You'll just have to go through the process then at that point. But if you do decide you like this 3-tab
Yeah.
Moray black certainty, then you're off the races. You're just moving.
Right, you have a conditional approval and you just keep moving once you get it to staff. Change, Then it really streamlines your
And
time.
one more question. What was the thing you mentioned about economic hardship? What was that again?
There is a definition for economic hardship in the historic guidelines. We generally don't rule by economic hardship unless you've met or have met all the criteria for it. It is pretty extensive when it defines it, just doesn't, usually it focuses more on true economic hardship, proving a case of economic hardship.
So.
Oklahoma City Code 3116.15 is the criteria to determine if economic hardship would apply. This is a little different because it's a commercial building and it's an income producing property, so it'd be a real stretch. We require you to submit financials, that kind of thing, so we really kind of comb through to find out why it's not economically affordable. And what we're proposing is probably gonna be less money than this.
Yeah.
So,
Right, but if you went with the carriage house, could you make the case for it to, would that be the case that you would make for it to be a subsidy or in the difference? Or no, that's not.
It's defined in there, the definition of economic hardship includes producing financial statements and some other things.
for example, and I'll read this right off the city code if you'd like, I'll just take a minute, but it says denial of certificate will result in a substantial reduction in the economic value of the property, results in economic burden for the applicant, and no reasonable alternative exists throughout the guideline process.
Thank you.
You think it looks through that?
There is, yeah.
But is it much more expensive? Oh, yeah, it's inferior.
That's a lesser, you know. But it meets their criteria and then they're good with it. Never said
So we'll do the conditional approval option.
And just let me be clear too, which is if, in the next few days you say, hey, I had a revelation, there's an even better product, it's not by certainty and it's not on the list, and you still want to bring that back in, you have that right to still come back in.
Yeah, you're not pigeonholed to it. This just helps you in the event that you want to move it forward. It's just an option.
Okay,
Okay.
so motions?
So you've given us conditional approval to modify your application, correct?
Yes,
And
yes.
the applicant agrees?
Yes.
Okay. So. Get this up here. So in regards to application 05_HR-23-09-022-685 Brighton Road. This application is to consist of a three-tab roofing system, perhaps in the moire black or equivalent color. And that's to be submitted to staff for final approval with the addition of either Tinner's red ridge caps or gray ridge caps.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, any further discussion?
We had discussed potentially a brand, or are we interested in having that brand follow through, or are we open to different brands? What we're really interested is 3 tabs in an appropriate color. But I'm fine.
You're good, Ken?
Jacqueline, any question on clarity?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any further questions? Yeah, okay. Then I'll move forward with a vote here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Going on to case number, actually, agenda item number 6, HR 2309-023B 721 Wilson Avenue. Is anybody here for Wilson Avenue?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Watch those words. A lot of trip hazard there. Thank you.
So there's no one here for 7-2 Wilson?
Do we want to punt it, or is it an item do you think that needs to have an applicant?
Maybe come back to it,
Okay. Well, we will.
just in case they show up a little bit later.
Great. Well, then let's go on to agenda item number 7. That would be 1029 Brighton Road, HR 23-09-024. Good. If you could actually both raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth in your testimony before the commission this evening?
Yes, I do.
And each state your full name and association with the property for records.
Clayton Barbier, I'm a co-owner of the property.
Okay.
Steve Hurt with Urban Order Architecture.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Jack.
Okay, so this is 1029 Brighton Road. It is a conceptual application. Right here. Okay, so the proposed work is to add a new enclosed mudroom within the existing porch structure and a new window with, that would be aluminum wood. as well as a new door that would be a full light, smooth fiberglass door, and that would include a transom. The new siding would be smooth cement board lap siding with smooth cement board trim. And the proposal also includes to replace the existing back door with a new 4-panel smooth fiberglass door and to replace the existing window with a new full light door with the transom under the existing porch. So a full width rear porch was present historically by 1921, but this was removed by the 1990s. So the current rear porch that's existing now was constructed sometime between 2016 and 2017. At least per the county auditor inventory, we're not able to find a record of it able to confirm in our HVO files. So at the September 7th business meeting, the commissioners asked for clarification about the site plan, noting that a section of the porch appeared to be left off. The commissioners requested a side-by-side view of the elevations and photos to clarify the proposed changes. And the commission asked if the door opening that will be removed is an original door opening, and noted that the removal of the original door opening was the main concern. So in response to commission feedback, the applicant noted that the area of the porch where no changes were proposed was left off in order to better fit the area of the porch where changes are proposed. And the applicant noted that photo 3 shows the west elevation is probably the best photo to compare and shows where the railing is, which will be a solid wall, or that's proposed to be. And that photos 3 and 4 show the south elevation. And photo 6 shows the non-original door that is proposed to be replaced with a new 4-panel solid door. And that photo 7 and 8 show an existing window over the hot tub, and that would be replaced with a full light door and transom, like the east elevation. The applicant also noted that they would be, the only change, they wouldn't be replacing the interior door opening, so they would be removing that access from the inside. And they would be replacing the non-original door with a solid 4-panel door. So this is a conceptual application. So the recommendation is that the commission should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future HRC meeting. So no action is required. The basis for the staff recommendation are the standards for alteration, specifically numbers 1, 2, 10, and 12. As well as just in general, the standards for new construction for City Code 316.12. And I'll turn it back over to the commission.
Thank you. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
Basically, what we want to do is just create this mudroom and pantry and a new entrance. So the idea would be that we would build from the header down, put a new foundation in, and then just enclose part of this non-original porch. And at the same time, we've got that Dutch door on the back that we would wall over from the inside and put a new 4-panel solid door on the outside. And we would like to add another door where that window is. So that would be, I think we have sort of like 3 things to talk about and see how comfortable the commission is with those proposals. But the roof of the porch would all stay.
It's the existing roof line. It's essentially you're just replacing from gutter line down.
Yeah, and we would still, for the west elevation, we would still have that header continuous along there.
I have my opinions, I don't know. So I'm familiar with the district a lot. When I look at the side elevation of it, just go to that real quick. Don't scroll down yet. So right, when I see the image on the left, that looks like so many sleeping porch little enclosures on Bryan Road, tacked in corners and just kind of siding filled little additions that they made along the streetway. I per se am actually not really offended by it as long as it's trimmed out and has the right detailing, but trim board, headboard, base.
I think just go away.
Yeah, it's gonna look like there's a bunch of sleeping 1 and 2-story sleeping porches or little kind of built on kits that exist in the Bryan Road corridor, and they were often brick homes with these little appendages that were clad with siding on the back. So to me, the architecture just fits. It just is what it is.
That didn't seem like it was much of an issue during the business meeting. I think our primary concern is what's happening inside of that sleeping porch. And your proposal to remove or wall in an existing door and propose a new opening. So I don't know if you had any additional reasons why we would start to take apart that original fabric, of the building in that way.
So because the existing side door to the porch is now gonna be interior. We would just put a frame wall in there, so it's easily,
No, down, just at the top of the page there.
put back. Is that what your question is, from the
So-
interior door?
You want to come on up?
Yeah.
I would like to see the whole floor plan. There we go. Thank you.
So are we talking about this original
Yes.
opening?
Yes.
Yeah, we would just frame that in and it would be on the interior.
Correct. Well, we have to treat the building and this new sleeping porch as if at some point that could be removed. And if that were to happen, we've now kind of taken away some of the character or the existing conditions for that exterior wall.
Well, you're proposing maybe to use wood. Still,
Yeah, it's just that would just be an interior
Pull it
frame
back
wall.
out. So the opening would be there. My concern along what you're thinking, I think, is the additional opening.
I
Right.
think that's what's going to change.
Right.
This opening,
No, the new opening that you're proposing,
this.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, you're now taking away existing original brickwork from that wall.
Yeah.
Can you flip that around and use the original opening, or if we exhausted that, or if it just doesn't work, or throw?
I would rather walk into a foyer than a pantry, but
See what I mean?
yeah.
Oh, Steve.
So I understand that. But historically, we've done many, many additions and modified
Yeah.
the
That's the.
exterior walls.
True, exactly. That's considered a little stuff.
Yeah, I look at the oodles of additions that have been made to the German village homes, for example, that, you couldn't peel those things back off.
Yeah.
If you could move it around and use the original opening, that would be fantastic.
You say take the original door and move it over there.
No, leave the,
I think.
pull that half down.
Figure out.
Yeah, come in there instead of coming out of that straight corner.
Well, while we're talking about that, do we have any, there's a similar thing going on.
I would say that, the
That's
filling
more
of
than
the
concern.
filling of the 4-panel door in the back of the house and walling over it, that to me, that's like, we've asked other applicants to do wall overs, right?
Yeah, that's
It's still a door on the outside.
Okay.
Is it the other door though up top, is that a window
This is
becoming?
the window.
So that is to me the one that's the hard part.
Oh.
Just I look at it on all of them.
I was saying if you gave a little on one, we could figure out the other way, but you see where this is going.
Yeah. And I can have Clayton comment on this, but we're still debating whether we need that door. So if that is a trade-off to let this addition happen,
What do you think, Lane?
Because I think we were going to, at some point, potentially move the hot tub. Because I think right now the hot tub is so close to that doorway that we were most likely going to be primarily use that other,
So the third step into the hot tub.
we're going to use that other egress and ingress point at that new area that we're planning to build out.
the issue here is this porch is big and it wraps around, so I just wanted to have access.
So you didn't have to walk all the way around and, yeah, I see where you're going.
Yes. Yeah, and currently, if you look at the original plan, there's a ton of room. Yeah, this is a solid wall.
So we're talking about over here too, right? Is that the?
Yeah,
Well, that's where the addition would be.
A picture of the elevation.
So I have had this conversation with many other commissions. This is where we would propose a door.
Yeah, on the far side. Right by the bay.
And I've been doing this for a long time, and it has surprised me that we're talking about modifications to the original fabric that is now going to be interior. Seems sort of a new thing, just having a conversation.
It'll manage it. Here we. Check that in box.
We need higher standards with HRC.
So the way that it exists, here's the other thing. I don't think you could put a door in that opening. You're gonna have to go wider anyway. I mean,
We would modify that, yes.
how much wider from that standpoint? You wanna go 3.0 or how big you can go?
It's a lot of doors. You have a new door around the corner. You're gonna look at a 4-panel door that's an infill. Then you're gonna have an addition with another yet new door. You got a lot of doors on the back, that's so. I don't know. To me, the lesser of the evils is the addition in the corner and not even touching this whole area, you know, in some ways, but.
Well, I mean, I was just exhausting the fact that if it would fit narrowly within that footprint. But I think you're gonna get a bigger header. You're gonna have to really clear into that, to make it big enough, if you're gonna use it for egress.
That masonry opening, or the window in that opening is 2'7", so my assumption is it's a 2'10" masonry opening. So we wouldn't necessarily have to make that wider. If we wanted to put a transom and a door and a 3-foot door, then we would have to modify everything.
Right. So you have to get a custom door.
But I could get a door to fit in the width.
What do you think?
Oh, no, we wouldn't have to raise it's still an 8'2" height, so we wouldn't have to change
Yeah, most of the headers are consistent around these.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
I mean, you'd be basically making this around the corner.
correct.
kind of, you wouldn't have the.
Do it
transom,
yeah.
But yeah,
And
Well, maybe we will have the transom because the heads are all the same height.
I don't think that one is, I think that's tall.
No.
But I'm guessing, I could be off.
See,
There you go.
they're level across the house.
Look in the back windows on the bump out. Now go back to the other photo where the window is. There you go. One more. I think there's one in that. There you go. See it? See how those are all the same.
It's the same brick course. Follow the brick line.
Yeah. Well, those three are. I'm looking at the bump out and it does look like it's the same here. Now go back down if you don't mind to like page 6 or 5. Keep going down. There you go. For some reason, that looks, maybe it's just the angle.
Just the angle.
I think it's the angle, because according to my dimensions, they're all the same.
Are they? Okay.
Are you talking about the header overlap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked to be about 6 inches.
I have less heartburn about it because it would save all that and that would be consistent. I mean, if they could squeeze it in that hole. If it was absolutely necessary.
We get requests for windows to doors and infill windows. So just know that the precedent of taking a window to a door is not like the subjection is not before. When it's been on the outside of the house. I've
And a few of those, but yeah.
right, when they've become inside conditions, I know that they've happened. We don't have big ones on the inside of the house. But I can think back to other homes that we've seen on Bride Road where the little build on came later. And of course, that's exactly what they did. They just took a window and added a door after it was inside.
All right, Clayton, what do you think? Skip the window?
Steve.
Well, you're seeing
First part too, you know.
you're seeing what we would like.
Ideally, like, yeah.
Um,
How much heartburn do we really have over this interior switch? Let's tackle this interior door issue where we're removing, infilling that, which I think is no problem because that could be taken out like that.
Yes.
Inside that porch. So now we're cutting a hole in there for a doorway that didn't exist.
So we're breaking this down into 3 application scenarios, like, and this is just an application for the addition.
Let's just start with that.
that.
Yeah, I think I would be okay with the porch addition. I don't think that's ever gonna go away. And in that sense, I think it makes sense that if there was a if it was easy to flip that pantry down, you could go through that door, but it seems like it's gonna work a little better with the way that they've designed it for a reason. I have a reasonable amount of support for that kind of modification, knowing it's basically at that point, it's an interior wall.
Yeah.
And this addition's gonna be there, I think.
I don't think we're misrepresenting the historic nature of the building either by converting something that wasn't there. We're actually, exterior is becoming internal, which is very typical in historical building. It's kind of the American way, is always that doing little add-ons and add-ons and add-ons. So I think I'm coming around to seeing it your way. I know, Tamika, you might have a reservation though, right?
Slightly, but I can compromise.
Right.
Does it help if we make that the same size as a regular door? You know, it's,
Instead of the 4, 6, or whatever it is.
yeah, right now it's like a 3.5 foot opening.
Is it? Oh, yeah. I don't know how big you're gonna put that door on the outside, but like you wanna slide a wheelchair or something through there, you might wanna keep some space. I mean,
Well, I'm just asking.
sure, no, I get it.
The other thing too, and you might have, like you said, the dimension on that. I think even just as the other commissioners were saying, I think when you eyeball that up, you're at about a 2.8 opening, 32 inches or something like that, right? And if you take out the frame, you're at 2.4. It's getting to be tight. I think you're going to want a larger door anyway. And then you're getting into modifying brick, and I don't think, at least I might have some reservation at that point, if we're talking about the door on Plan North. If we're modifying openings now and converting, for me, that might be a whole different discussion. So I think I'm more Plan South, that I could see getting on board with that. But Plan North, converting the window to a door, I think would be a harder sell for me.
What do you think, Clayton? Now's the time.
I mean, it does look interesting if you have a lot of doors around that side, like you said, but I can't remember why we were going with the door there, because I think it was closer to the kitchen. Forget why, but
This is conceptual, so you don't have to decide.
Sure.
yeah.
That's just feedback.
I mean, feedback is for me, it's like Plan South on this. I'm fine with that. I'm already there. I would
Skip the window, look at the window alone.
Plan North, I can't, I just gonna support it because of the precedent of taking a window and making it a door. Bottom line.
Right.
The infill of a door with a 4-panel door, we've already done that, so that's already precedent.
It's easy. That's an easy wall, right back out. But yeah. All right.
Yeah, and the reason for that door, to everyone's point, is we've got this giant deck that wraps around, and it's like the only way in and out of that is the new mudroom door.
I get it.
You know,
If I lived there, I'd
entertaining.
probably like that.
Of course, because we have no control over the inside of your house, your work. How you decide to leave or utilize your 4-panel door, should you put one in, is your business. So you could still potentially have yet.
Yes, we understand that.
So-
We can have that discussion. But
You're saying it could be another door.
No.
added.
No, I'm saying how they utilize the kitchen and lay out the kitchen, that's
Just have a little fun.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Are there any other points you want to sort of clarify from a conceptual part? I mean, I think we're on board with there's ghosting on the back of the house. I think your roof line is great. I think it's gonna, you're gonna effectively put something back that kind of mirrors a little bit of what that feel was originally. I'm full of that. I think it really works well with the house.
And this is one of those houses that notoriously has the smallest room on the first floor is the kitchen. So we're trying to
Yeah. Make it
Gain some
livable.
real estate.
make it
More functional.
more functional
That makes a lot
by
of
just making some changes.
Sure.
So that was where we started. And we're on the back of the house, so we thought we would make that attempt.
Conceptual approvals and no action required.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna appreciate it.
All right, so we're working on the drawings.
Okay.
Yeah. Clayton, you happy?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Going on to.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Central Application 2309-025, that's 628 Oakwood Avenue.
The meat house.
If you could then raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth in your testimony before the commission this evening.
I do.
Wonderful. State your full name and association with the property.
Noah Strickland. I'm the owner of property.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jack.
Okay, this application is for 628 Oakwood Avenue. It is a conceptual application. The proposal is for a new single-family home, a 2,600 square foot, 2.5-story home, as well as a new garage, which would be at the east or rear of the property facing Walton Avenue, that alley area for the submitted materials. So the site is currently a vacant lot. Historically, a 2-story brick single-family home was present on the lot, as well as a single-story wood frame automobile garage constructed sometime between the early 20s and the early 50s. So in general, staff avoids recommending avoiding the use of faux look materials such as the faux wood grain texture or stone veneer. Another ask would be, could additional windows be added at the side or rear elevations, and noticing that there's not a whole lot of windows there. And then note that when returning for final approval, recommend obtaining preliminary feedback from building and zoning to confirm whether any variances may be required, if any apply. So the September 7th business meeting, the commissioners requested contextual drawings or to scale rendering of the proposed home with neighboring homes to better evaluate the consistency with the neighborhood. And the commissioners noted that the site plan showed the house further forward than the other houses, and that they wanted to be sure that the setback was consistent. The commissioners noted that they want to be sure the existing sloping lawn is maintained to keep the park-like setting design of the neighborhood, and that we'll eventually need to see the landscaping plan as part of the final approval. And the commission recommended avoiding the faux materials such as the faux wood grain. And the commission noted that the preference is for 2 garage doors to maintain the historic proportions and consistency unless there is documentation that the alley is too narrow for 2 garage doors. And if the alley is too narrow, recommend a single garage door be trimmed out to appear as 2 doors. So in response to the business meeting feedback, the applicant has submitted revised drawings, including sheet A00, which addresses the setback consistency concern, sheet A0-1, which addresses the adjacent property proximity and the scaling, as well as sheet G11, showing the front elevation of the garage, and this revises the single garage door entry to a double garage door entry. So since this is a conceptual application, the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine their proposal for review at a future HRC meeting, and so no action is required. In general, the staff recommendation is based on the City Code 316.12 standards for new construction, and as well as the HRC guidelines for garages and outbuildings on pages 85 and new construction on pages 90 to 93. And I'll turn it over to commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before going forward, what would the applicant like to add?
I just want to add that the composition of the exterior surface will be all siding. It had mentioned some veneer stone for the front facade under the porch, under the front porch.
So the entire width.
Yeah, so we're just gonna go with the siding for the entire.
So you're gonna fix any of the.
Says-
You're not gonna use the cladding?
No,
Stone cladding, you're just gonna go full on, okay.
yes.
What's the pitch of the roof on the house, do you know?
I don't know that information.
So I think the garage is 612. I just was curious. I see 12.4 on the porch.
I know the architect wasn't able to make it tonight, so we can always
Maybe I-
feedback
makes-
just to relay back.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting to come. I'm kind of substituting in for him. I had to show up as I'm the owner, so.
I can, well, let me start off with positives. I can appreciate that on A0-0, you've aligned the front wall of the house with the neighboring building, so thank you for doing that. Because that, in that revision that I'm looking at here, that's definitely a value. How come I'm looking at this sheet and that's.
Is it in our sheet, or is it forward?
So I'm looking at.
This one looks like it's, the porch is in line with the porches of the.
Page
multi-unit.
4.
Oh, that's the back. You're looking at
So page 4, it's in alignment.
That other one we were just looking at, it wasn't though.
Right.
A0-0, it's not.
There's 2A0.
Yeah, there's a revised A0-0.
Oh, yes, the revised.
That revision, that actually puts the front wall in line with the building next door.
This is
which I
the
think
latest one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which, that's what I was looking at on my packet.
Right.
So I think that gets the critical where the house needs to sit on the street. So thank you for doing that. And I like the fact that it still fits there in that humongous existing tree, which you should look at in the photo.
In the back.
It's still there. I mean, I know it looks like it's into the neighbor's yard or something. There's a fence that kind of cuts over there,
Big
but,
oak tree or something.
yeah, that's a nice big mature tree that gets to live.
That's nice.
So you can't buy those, you know? That's one of those nice things. So, for me, the general details of the house, you know, it fits kind of contextually. It is what it is. It's a new build. It's got pairs of windows, upper, lower. To me, it looks like some other homes I think I've seen on some side streets or around there that have kind of a stucco up top thing and brick from that point on downward. It's got, you know, the kind of, looks like some Tudory looking board or batten or kind of panelization of that third floor.
Yeah,
That's fine with me. I'm glad to hear that you're not going to do the cultured or fake stone on the lower
Stick 'em.
portion, because the lick and stick just doesn't look really good. It just won't fit that community, so.
yeah.
I'm not so concerned about windows on the side, because looking at your floor plan, it's a modern house and that's not gonna be conducive to adding windows on the side. And this looks to be a rather narrow lot overall, because
It is.
Yeah, that's.
it's, you know, although this elevation says there's 41 feet between the two structures, your property lines are not 41 feet apart. I assume they're much less. So by code, you're gonna have all sorts of other issues with the property line coming down.
I mean, you got 3-3 on one side. That's cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You have to get any variances?
Not to this point, no.
Okay.
I just, you know, I assume the windows have mullions and some other things that we're really not looking at that are shown in this elevation. I just, as you finalize your application, I'd love to see just windows plugged in here that truly show the jams and
Scale,
mullions that really give us that detail, you know, the next slide, and actually show the door you're gonna use and show some of those things. Missing on here would be light fixtures as well. Where are they? You know, where's the front porch light fixture? Where's there's a side light fixture and rear window fixtures?
That sort of thing.
I do agree with staff on the alleyway. The garage should be a 2-door, not a single door, unless you have a zoning issue with clearance and setback and width of alleyway. And that's gonna be, that change, if you're gonna, I mean, I assume you've revised to this 2-door configuration? Is that
Yes.
correct? So that is your current proposal then?
Correct.
So I'm fine with that.
With that, those A2 doors or whatever.
Yeah, 2 doors and
It looks good. The back elevation of the house has a little bit of an interesting appeal with those two windows kind of squeezed together underneath the door. It looks a little weird, but I get it.
it's a narrow house.
Yeah. And again, you got the great tree and you're gonna put a garage, you're gonna have a garage there too. So I mean, you're gonna block some of that. It's not gonna be a huge
Yeah.
visible thing. It's just, there's a lot of unusual space. I do have a question though, on the front facade, that upper, that block that says 2042, is that a window or is that a vent or what's gonna be up there?
The third
Yeah.
floor?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a window.
Okay. So that's the same numbers though on the back. So there's a double hung on the back, I think. So again, it'll help with us to see like the window schedule and what windows you're thinking and all that good stuff. But it's really a nice packet. I mean, it does a really good job.
It's like a basic infill home to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
typical would have been just built by a contractor without an architect in home today.
I mean, we basically
Did
just
you come
aligned
up with
with,
this design or did you see some and you said, hey, this is gonna work or?
well, we basically just aligned with the neighborhood and what it called for, so we just kept it simple, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
It works.
I mean, I like windows, so I think that's a nice feature, curb appeal, so that's why I like to add windows to the front and the back, but
What do
at the
you
end of the day, well, you had made a comment about the windows in the back, and then We also wanted to add the windows on the first floor on the side. So I'm just mentioning, why we want to.
Okay,
'Cause
Yeah,
that's
with
just-
your final, you can, I think we're all receptive to adding windows.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a new build, which is lovely,
Mhm.
as long as it's, in keeping and respecting the neighborhood, which clearly it is, and you're working within a narrow footprint, so there's a lot of understanding of that as well. So I think you're coming really strong right off the bat.
I think it's
I'm
key,
very pleased with it so far.
Thank you.
I think it's key when you come into, you've got some handrail details tier two, make sure you have gutter and downspout details as well. Finishes all picked out.
All the fixtures, there's only one I think that's pointed out in the garage, which is kind of a motion light, usually not the most appropriate thing, but we can kind of get through that. These are just little details, which,
We'll probably use like leaning towards like the gooseneck,
Just
black fixtures.
bring in cut sheets, put in cut sheets in your packet.
if your manufacturer has a sheet that says, this is the kind of light, it's the size and all that stuff.
Okay.
Product spec sheet.
When do you hope to dig the hole?
When we get approval, we hoping to start in
Go
November.
right at it.
Yeah,
So
we
get
can go
those
straight to
third.
it. Yeah, we have some other projects, so we're looking at like November, hopefully.
Only question I think that came up was looking at the garage, whether or not that should be a 2-panel. But since it's a new build, doesn't even matter. If I remember correctly, was that an issue?
I don't remember, but certainly you can bring up discussion if you believe it's compatible or not.
I was just trying to remember, if maybe this belonged to another previous application, so.
Okay.
I would think the two-door garage is always compatible because that's what they would have built
Right.
in the day.
Yeah,
I think we varied from that standard when we've said there was inadequate clearances in the alleyway. And that's based on the alleyway width and the parking radial into the garage, right?
And the setback.
That's a zoning review.
Yeah. The only thing I did notice too is there was mention of some of the trim on the garage being 4-inch vinyl, 4-inch this, that, and the other. Typically, what we ask for is, the main material can be a smooth siding, but the corners need to be wood, both corners, and in some soffit area, that kind of thing. And we're gonna get through some of those details with staff, but it's really on point. I mean, it's really coming.
So, yeah, we'll, for the corners, we'll use smart trim for all the trim, we'll use smart trim.
So the corners in the district though, staff can provide you with examples of this. We do have a detail that has been used in the district though, where we do request that you use corners of wood.
What do you mean?
It's not vinyl sided corners.
Like smart trim?
It's wood.
Smart trim is a synthetic product, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. So then, and unless you're going to request us to vary something, you're gonna have to disclose that in full because the corners we would expect to see in most garages and even on the houses would be trimmed out in a cedar or even a hardy. We've done it.
A hard, yeah, hard.
So that's gonna have to be clear on the detail in your phone.
Okay.
And some of that really comes into effect with the depth of the product. And so when you do the reveal and the cap for your siding, that everything kind of lines up nice and works real well.
Okay.
And faux wood grain products are a no.
Right.
Smooth.
Yeah, I
Some
like,
people think it's helping, but it doesn't. It
No.
just doesn't look real.
yes.
When we're looking at the elevations,
that's the children.
and they're the plain white that doesn't have any texture on it. What is that all intended to be? Is that all the hardy? So what kind of hardy? Is that a hardy lap or?
Yes, it's a hardy lap.
It's like the north and the south elevation on the side of the house.
Yeah, because
It's
I
like
get
solid.
On
fellow
the side of the house?
the side and also on the rear, there's just,
The entire home will be hardy lap.
okay, that's all.
Outside of the third floor would be like a board back.
I would, couple things. I would just ask your architect to actually show some texture of actually how that would look. And then maybe some of the detailing about how it would be trimmed out, so we could provide a little bit more comment on the actual look and feel of the elevation.
Like, including the windows, like the windows being
Yes.
trimmed out.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
The windows
exactly.
be trimmed out. Yeah.
This is fine for conceptual, but just trying to give you for next step things, we'll probably want a little bit more detail.
Excellent.
And for a conceptual package, this is amazing, so you're on the right track. And I would echo, I think the front elevation really getting a stale size, the way that you've been really consistent with looking at the adjacent buildings, so heights and setbacks and all that. Personally,
Mhm.
and maybe this is a little bit outside of the commissioner role, but I would just implore you to consider the windows maybe a little bit more. I think this is going great. This seems a little sparse. The sides seem a little bit sparse. Ultimately, I think I could be convinced that it's not needed, but I would just wonder from your own experience on the interior, if you might not like a little bit more light and view and all that as you're walking through that space.
Yeah, I wouldn't like more light.
Right. More windows, might,
Hypothetically, if you live there, you'd want more light.
right.
Want more light? Yes, for sure. So we're gonna add more windows. I think the architect wasn't sure if he was able, I guess, for the conceptual drawings. That's why we.
Oh, I see. So they're just kind of incomplete right now at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, so we would add probably, another 2 windows on the top and then another window.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, it just,
Yeah,
that's what, the way I was reading it, it seemed a little bit incomplete, like,
Mhm.
like they'd spent, a lot of time on this elevation and maybe just were not complete then, but.
okay, yeah.
And the other thing that I kind of, once we got to talking a little more, I thought, well, because of the density, I thought, well, maybe there's less windows for that, because you're gonna look out of one room and look right into the neighbor's place. So anyway, I was sort of trying to figure out, where that is, so,
Right.
Right,
but,
yeah.
do you have any other questions for us?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Definitely head, but thanks for pointing out, head jam and sill details are critical in your final package.
Say it again?
Head jam and sill details are critical in your package.
Okay, the doors, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in windows, there is a pre-approved list for both windows and roofing. You can choose to use those, but if you're gonna vary from those, please make sure that that's clear and you have adequate data in your package as well.
There's a lot more flexibility with a brand new build than typically if you had a historical one that we were going into.
Okay.
But typically we really refer to the approved list for shingles, types of windows, material of windows. It's very unlikely that would approve like a vinyl window per se.
Mhm.
But I think you called out there aluminum. I was looking for that, yeah,
Yeah.
which is reasonable. So yeah, I think you're on the right path. Say, to have a discussion with your architect, kind of figure out what you're gonna do with the windows. Trim details,
Right.
kind of tighten it all up.
So
Yeah.
for the same requirements that are required for the house that it is for the garage, as far as like the actual wood for the corner, so it is.
We don't even know what your corners are that are proposed, I think is the issue right now.
Yeah, we'll do,
It's a little more detail.
we'll do hardy board trim, smart, we can't do smart trim?
So you have to specify what you're doing and we just have to get comfortable with the product. I don't know what the smart trim product looks like. I know what a hardy product looks like, and a detailed hardy corner is pretty easy to understand and draw real quick. I know that we've approved as public test cases because hardy is not explicitly in the code.
Mhm.
But I know in a lot of new construction, or even some historic rehab sometimes, we've approved hardy trims to mimic the same size as you would have put cedar on.
Okay,
So maybe a physical sample if you're thinking you're moving towards the smart trim might be helpful.
Yeah.
Just to show what that would look like. I know sometimes hardy could be hard to, the width or the projection, it doesn't always come out as far. It's the
There's a
method.
little translation, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little tricky.
Yeah, and with some of the vinyl products, the problem I've seen on vinyl products is, just was through this recently on a project not here. But it was like the vinyl manufacturer made a trim component and it was the same size for the head and the jambs, the sides.
Mhm.
But historically, that's not accurate. The head is always generally larger on a historic home than ever the jambs are. And it just doesn't look right then. So although there was a nice picture frame molding around it, it was wrong.
Right,
So like, just, it has to have components that work together and make sense. And right now, I think you've got a head, at the tops of these gained windows, let's say, but there's no actual jam trim. So it's still sort of short, stop short. So the
okay.
question is how the system kind of comes together. Because I'd hate for you to put siding in there that just dies at a J channel that's up against a window. Because that's
Wouldn't
not
work.
be built, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we can get that. And we won't be using J channel.
But you don't understand, that you get siding components, they're all pre-manufactured in this day and age. A lot of them are kits of parts and they work well in unregulated suburban settings, but they don't really come together and look like a historic home in a historic district.
Yeah, I'll pass this on to the architect and we'll make sure we have everything clarified for you guys for the next meeting.
One last quick thing, and this is the night, but I'm just asking about the relationship of the window to the roof too. Just, I think this will be a tough thing to pull off, what they're showing here.
As far as the
Roof,
space,
the trim, the windows, and also you're gonna get snow that's gonna accumulate on the roof, so you wanna offset that window.
Do you have enough space?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
Well, the next door.
And it's maybe just the scale of the windows, and tighten up a little bit, get a
Right.
little bit more offset. And then it's easier to transition when you have a little bit more space going from roof to a siding to a trim to a window.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. You have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
Look forward to your additions.
Thank you.
All right, should we go ahead and continue that one?
Or is it?
It's just conceptual review.
Well,
Oh, the one from
we
earlier.
skip.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, we
yes,
skipped
sorry. That would be, that's 721 Wilson Avenue. Is that correct? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I make a motion to continue HRF.
Before we do that, do you want to just go over what it is real quick in any way, shape or form?
Sure. So 721 Wilson Avenue, the garage component that the applicant came in for, that was moved to staff approval at the business meeting. Now staff did notice that there are areas of stone that have been repainted white and some small areas that the paint had worn off that were also repainted. So this was included as part of the application. We have not got a response. We've communicated with the owners so they know the options that the commission discussed at the business meeting, which was, since this was mostly previously painted, the commission would be okay with repainting a color to match the original stone, or removing the paint if the applicant so chose. So I haven't got a confirmation from that yet, but that is what is the remaining component of the application on the agenda today.
There he started.
Yeah, so they, basically the moral of the story is they scraped this and repainted it already.
Some of it.
Yes, and it might not necessarily have been the current owner, but it was recently done.
So there was that issue and then the fence, I guess.
I feel like on this case, because we have proof that this was a white painted van by a previous condition, I'd be worried they do more harm trying to get the white paint back off again now that that's been
Well, looked and painted, right?
And maybe if any approval is granted, it's just on the condition of it can exist until it's ready to come off again. Because paint was temporary.
Is that really went down on this? New fence.
Sorry, do you have an approval, a previous approval for the new?
That's it.
So we have an approval of the fence. Yeah, if we can just take action on this, I'd be okay with it. And again, I would support that it was painted. We have evidence of the van being painted and that there's just a motion to renew it just for its current installation.
This guy. What do you think? Okay, you want to make a motion?
Sure, all right, so for HR 23-09-023B, 721 Wilson's Avenue, we are making a approval of keeping the paint as it is, with the condition that once it is ready to be removed, or once that paint begins to wear down, that all of the paint below the trim would be removed.
I'll second it, but if you don't mind, I'd add a little something.
Yeah.
That we're only allowing that to happen where there is pre-existing only white paint.
Correct.
And that paint can be now painted over if it's peeling in only those areas. Is that okay? I'll re-second.
Okay. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I was gonna say, is there any other items of new business this evening before the second?
So not the agenda, but I did recall, Joe, since you were waiting to be reappointed. The different historic commissions were asked to move our business meetings to room 205 to like open up the space basically.
Okay,
So it's in that room that's to the immediate left of this, that smaller space. I think we've been in there before. We've had a maneuver, but so that's just for the business meetings.
okay.
Going forward, all
So-
business meetings over here?
Yes.
You're okay with that?
So I will then,
All right.
I will then read into record that the next business meeting of Thursday, October 5th at noon is in room 205 on the second floor, 111 North Front Street. So I am correcting my earlier statement for record. Great, I motion to adjourn here.
Second.
Motion, second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes adjourned at 5:35 PM. Thanks.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yep. Just quick.